Hey, so you'll notice I'm walking back and forth in this video, and I'm outside. I'm out there because my kid's being annoying in the house, and I'm moving around because there's sandflies going after me, and I was trying to keep moving to avoid getting swarmed. Let's talk about buying real estate in Ecuador as a foreigner, as an expat. So this is a video I've tried to record like 4 or 5 times now, and the problem I'm having is that there's just too much to talk about, and my video keeps getting too long. So right off the bat, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as possible. There's probably some things I'm not going to cover very completely, so I encourage you to hit up the comments if you have questions, or if you've got some advice. If you see something I just didn't cover very well and you know quite a bit about it, hit the comments, or if I'm wrong about something, it happens. Help the community, help us all learn. So here goes, as fast as possible. So in Ecuador, unlike places like Thailand or Malaysia, you can own real estate outright. You don't need to have a local hold the title for you. That's one of the reasons why I first started looking at this part of the world, and one of the reasons why I settled here. The other really cool thing about owning property in Ecuador, if your property is valued at enough, you can get a visa through your property. So you don't have to leave the country when you reach your limit for days here. It used to be a really low amount. It used to be like back when I first bought my first property here, it was $25,000, and it's since gone up. Don't quote me on this, but it's more or less about double that. It's around $50,000, but it keeps changing. So at the time I record this, it might be about $50,000. Who knows what it'll be by the time you watch this. And that amount's really not exact. So, but yeah, you can get a visa through your property, and it's not through the price you pay for your property, but the value, what the municipality thinks your property is worth. So keep that in mind. So there's some important things to know about buying property in Ecuador. Anytime you hit any like expat group here and you talk about it, the first thing you're going to be told is rent before you buy. Take that seriously. That's the best advice you're ever going to get about buying property here. And there's a lot of reasons why. The biggest one is bad neighbors. You're really not going to know how that particular street is, those particular neighbors are, until you've spent some time in that area. Not just bad neighbors, but also, you know, sometimes they're good neighbors, but they've got too many dogs, and the dogs just love to bark at 4 in the morning, or the apartment complex next door has a rooster on the roof. I've had that happen in the city, in a nice neighborhood in Quito. I've had roosters on the roof on a high-rise apartment, things like that. But it's not just that, it's also, you know, that perfect climate that you fell in love with and decided to impulsively buy a property in, might suddenly change a certain time of the year and have terrible dust storms or swarms of insects or things like that. So, so that you're not disappointed later, rent before you buy. Take some time to learn. Also rent before you buy so that you can make friends in the area, because the best deals in real estate are not online, they're not advertised, they're not through real estate agents. They're through talking to the people, talking to taxi drivers, waitresses, people that work in the corner store. If you make friends in the area, someone will have a deal for you eventually. They'll show you a property that isn't on the market but could be, and is half what you would pay if you were just looking at ads online. So rent before you buy. Negotiate. This is really important in Ecuador. Not every property will negotiate down significantly, but some will, a lot will. Usually properties in Ecuador are priced really high with the expectation that you're going to lowball them. One of my most successful deals on a property in Ecuador, I paid $15,000 for a property that was priced at $45,000. That said, I've also paid $15,000 for a property that was priced at $15,000. The more you get to know the values in the area, the more you know when it's worth the asking price, and it's best just to pay with a seller that won't budge at all. But when you're new and you're trying to figure it out, lowball. Nobody's offended by it. They might laugh, but they're not going to be offended. They expect it. There's a lot of properties that are priced at double what the owners really expect to sell for. So when you look at property prices here, take them with a grain of salt. Expect that you can offer a really low amount and negotiate up. They're pricing their property high in preparation for that. Don't think you're making friends by paying too much. Ecuadorians, negotiating here is kind of like a sport, and they appreciate a good negotiation. I'm sure they're happy to walk away with more money, but they'll also not respect you. They'll think you're kind of dumb if you pay more than you should. Now, what else? Some terminology. Communa land or communa property. There's this thing in Ecuador. The government set up a way to protect what they felt were vulnerable communities, some of the indigenous groups and Afro-Ecuadorian communities. And they didn't want them to get exploited and lose their land. So they created comunas where you can't buy or sell the property. You can't. If you give someone money for it because they've tricked you into buying it, you're just giving them your money. You're not actually buying the land. And anytime the comuna wants to take that property back, they can. So don't buy these sort of properties. This is the reason why on a lot of the coast of Ecuador, you'll see beautiful beachfront properties that aren't developed. They're just, you know, some poor farms or little shacks along the beach in places where in other countries you'd see a lot of development. It's because it's communal property. There are a lot of unscrupulous people that will try very hard to convince you that there is a way to buy communal property, to convert it. There is not. You can't. You see these sort of people, these sort of properties, just run the other way. Save yourself the trouble and the headache. Acciones and derechos, that means actions and rights. That's another type of property in Ecuador. You can buy and sell it. It's not ideal, but it's possible. And I would certainly buy a property in this category if the price was right and the property was perfect in every other way. But it's basically, usually this means you're buying a property that's been subdivided smaller than the government wants, or to use in a way that the government doesn't want it used. Sometimes it's properties that, you know, they might not want them developed because of flooding or things like that. So be careful. Something's biting me. Be careful with these sort of properties. Don't totally rule them out, but they're not the ideal. The ideal is escrituras publicas. Escrituras, that basically means your papers or your title for the property. That's what you're looking for. That's what you want to buy. When you buy that kind of property, you have, you know, the same sort of property rights you would in the United States. Until recently, it was pretty rare for there to be real estate agents or lawyers, attorneys involved in a real estate transaction in Ecuador. And as more and more expats have moved here, it's started to become more common, but it's still not the way most Ecuadorians do things. And I'll caution you that because of a lack of standards in those industries, you may just be inviting someone into the process that will make things more expensive and more complicated, or be out to scam you. Not all the real estate agents or attorneys in Ecuador are held to a real high standard, and not all of them are honest by any means. I have never used an attorney when buying property or selling property in Ecuador. You do use a notary. You want to make sure you use a good notary that is independent of the other party. Don't use one that they've suggested. And I have been involved with a transaction that had a real estate agent in the mix once, and I lost $10,000. That was the one deal that I totally got scammed on. My first attempt to buy property in Ecuador. I eventually got $7,000 of it back, but it took 3 years to get the money back. And that's because the courts here really, they don't work the way that you would expect. Sometimes you just don't ever get a day in court, or if you do, the process is not fair. So you can use an attorney, you can use a real estate agent, but you don't necessarily need to. That said, if you have a really good recommendation for an attorney and it's a complicated deal, it's not a simple deal where there's just one owner and it's owned outright, it might be a good idea. The buying and selling process is slow. The buying process, things that seem like they should take, it should take a few minutes, sometimes take weeks or months. And the selling process, let me tell you, so I bought a property that I later regretted. I bought a beach house. I bought it really cheap, $21,000 for this, what seemed like a nice beach house. But later, there was a season where the mosquitos were terrible. You know, I didn't follow that cardinal rule of renting before you buy. I got excited. I was new here. And my family didn't like the town, especially my wife. Wasn't great schools, wasn't great for the kids. So we moved and put the house up on the market. It took 3 weeks to buy that house. It took 5 years to sell it. And I sold it for a huge loss. I sold it for $10,000 because I needed the money and it was time to just cut my losses and run. So when somebody was finally ready to buy it, man, I was ready to give it away. So I was just happy to get $10,000 for it. My point is, when you buy property in Ecuador, do not expect to be able to flip it. Don't expect to sell it quickly. It's going to take you a long time unless you get really, really, really lucky. When you're buying a house in Ecuador, buy it for the long haul. Don't. It's not like the U.S. market. it's tough. Don't expect to make money in real estate in Ecuador. You buy here because you want to live here, not because you're trying to flip a house. So while there's a million other things I could talk about on this topic, I'm doing it again. I'm talking too much and some of you are probably getting bored. So I'm going to start showing you some of the properties I've been looking at lately. I'm trying to buy a farm. I want to start a little farm out here, and it's a long process. Finding the right property. I've seen many. Let's take a look at a few that I've looked at and either want to buy but can't, or passed on. Here we go. I'm kind of on a little solo adventure right now, hiking around the property, trying to see how much of the land is usable. It's pretty steep, but it's got some little places where we could terrace it and build a house and some gardens, and we could do goats or cows on these steeper parts. The current owner has got he's got 6 bulls. He's raising them for to sell for meat. I'm not sure we're gonna go that route, but yeah, steep, hard to walk here. But I'm gonna show you around a little bit, and we got to talk to the guy about the price of the property. He wants a little too much, but it's 10 hectares. That's like 27 acres ish. It's pretty good. It's what I've been looking for, especially because it's got water that comes out of a spring that you can just drink, and it's got several little rivers and creeks. I'm trying to walk down to one of the rivers right now, though I might have to build a new trail or some stairs to make it walkable. Boy, whoa, yeah, tough to walk. I probably just slipped in a cow pie. Whew. All right, so here we go. Yeah, I don't think I can walk down to the river. It's down below there, but that's really steep, and there is no trail. I think this is Naranjilla. This is Naranjilla. So it's got a name similar to naranja, similar to oranges. My feelings are a little mixed on this property because oh, there's a frog. Where'd he go? There's a little frog in here. Oh, he's hiding. Oh well, I'm not gonna bother him. My feelings are mixed because for the price they're asking, it's not good for land that's this steep. This, it's 10 hectares, but in reality, maybe only 1 hectare of the land is really usable. There's blackberries. Blackberries, awesome. Look at that. Blackberry. Oh, delicious. Oh, that's got a much better flavor than the blackberries I'm used to. I hope the cows haven't been pooping on them. All right, I made it back up. I've always wanted to move out into the country, have a little farm, produce my own food, and just be away from other people in the city and all the city problems. But my wife and the kids are city people. It's what they're used to and what they know. And always, it was a kind of a big struggle, a little bit of a compromise and sometimes a conflict in our family, deciding where we were going to live. But now, because of the pandemic, my wife is definitely on board with getting out of the city. I don't know if this was exactly her idea of how far out in the country she wanted to live. This is really far out. This little road, we're maybe an hour from a very small pueblo, a little tiny town called Yanguilla, and a good hour and a half to hour and 45 minutes from the edge of anything I'd call a city. In the end, we ended up passing on this property. The owner would only negotiate down from 36 to 35,000, and it just wasn't quite worth it to us. But it was interesting checking it out. I liked the place. I just didn't like the price. This was another property that was almost but not quite worth it. Beautiful place with an amazing river down at the bottom. Great climate, but at $50,000, it just didn't quite make sense. And this one was just too remote, way up in a very difficult to reach part of the Intag Valley, and it had a pig farm right next to it that was rather unpleasant.
Usted me comprende más. Todo esto por allá atrás, de ese pochero que está limpiado, por atrás es bastante faldado hasta que llegue a la quebrada, ahí está abandonada, por ahí baja y cierra así abajo, por acá, adentro.
So there you have it. Those are a few of the properties that we've looked at recently. There were things I liked about all of them, but not enough to put my money into it. And that's really the lesson in Ecuador. You got to be patient, wait it out until you find something that truly is a place that you want to live for a long time. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please remember to like and subscribe.